Yeah. So first off, just want to thank all the subscribers. Appreciate you guys. Much love. Today what I want to do is I want to talk about my parents. Now, I often talk about my past. And I talk about, some of the difficulties I had in the past. I talk about some of the trauma that I've experienced. And when I do that, I want people to know that I'm not doing that to shit on anybody. I'm not doing that to put anyone down because I understand that everybody has their own struggles, right? And my parents are no exception to that. My parents had a lot of struggles and they did their best. And I appreciate that. I do. And part of me, wants to put this out there to kind of let you know who they are, who they were. For in the case of my father, may he rest in peace. So I do want to talk about what I admired about my parents. There were a lot of things I admired about them, but today I'm going to focus on the fact that they were always willing to help people. That's something that I've seen from a very young age, and it's a pattern that continued throughout my life. And so that's what I want to get into right now. I want to get into, what I admired about my parents, and specifically talking about helping other people. So as far back as I could remember, whenever somebody needed help, my parents always opened the door for them. I wouldn't necessarily say like weird ass strangers, like who the fuck is that guy kind of thing. But there would be people that they knew that they brought around, and if they fell on hard times, my parents would always open the door to them. So they'd be like, yeah, like fuck it, go ahead and crash in the couch, take as long as you need, that kind of thing, right? So that was something that I seen growing up, and I used to trip out. Sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, as a little kid, that shit could get annoying because you're like, damn man, I wanted to play in the living room. These motherfuckers are all laid up in the living room and shit, right? So just from a selfish point of view, as a child, that shit could get annoying at times, like low key. That should be like, man, again, fuck. But as a grown man, looking back, I was like, man, that's real cool. Like they had their people's fucking back. Like they had it like a motherfucker, like a spine. Like they had their back that much. So, they would open their doors to people. And there's a lot of people who they would open the door to. Sometimes my jefa, she would feel that people would do her dirty, things wouldn't work out, and she'd be like, oh fuck these people and all kinds of shit like that. But the thing what I love and I admire about her is that she never let it change her. She would still continue to help people even after she felt that she got done wrong. Some people would say, I've been done wrong, I've been down this road before, we're not playing this game again, fuck that, right? But my jefita, she would do it a different way, like, nah, I'm gonna still give you the benefit of the doubt, I'm gonna try to help you. And I've always admired that about her, for real. Like that shit was always real dope to me. So that's one thing that I've always admired about her. My pops, when he helped somebody, I learned more about him when it comes to helping people after he passed away, because people started telling me stories. He never would brag about anything. You would never hear him saying, yeah, I remember I just shot them this, or I just went over there and shot them that. Like he wouldn't do that. So my dad used to work for a factory that delivered bread, a warehouse. There we go, a warehouse that delivered bread, right? And he would come up on free bread a lot. So sometimes, whenever, from what I was told, my uncle said that there'd be like events, right, that he'd be throwing for South Amani South Amani baseball teams, the high school football, because his kids went to South, and a lot of shit like that, right? What's the district out there called? Valley Lindo School District. Sometimes they'd be raising money. My pops would see him outside. He'd just pull up like, oh, what do you guys need? I got you. He'd go get them a gang of bread. Boom, break them off. Here you go. Never ask for anything in return. Like that's charity. That's what he did it for, right? He would do that. Even the homies would say, like, there'd be times where they'd be chilling, like all like coming down, just like not feeling it, and he'd roll up like, what's up, homies? Like, you guys need something? He'd come and buy them a 24 pack or a fucking just get them a loaf of bread or even like just treats, sweets and shit, just to kind of make their day go by a little better. That's the kind of person my pops was, right? My jefita, even when my dad wanted the joint, she would still try to let her homegirl stay over, and that's why I think where things went bad for her for a lot of times. Sometimes they'd clash or whatever, but she would, like, again, she would never change who she was. When I got out of YA, even before I went to YA, when I was coming around, I remember there were times where I would have people who had nowhere to go. I'm talking, I was young at the time, 13, 14 years old. I'd have homegirls who had nowhere to go. They needed a place to stay. I'd tell my parents, hey, you think they could crash here? They'd be like, yeah, fuck it. Like, they didn't want to see people sleeping on the streets. That's not the kind of people they were. So they'd open their door to them. And they did it multiple times. Even when I got to YA, my brother, he had the same shit going on with him. He had boys who had nowhere to go. And my mom and dad would open the door to them and let them stay there. So for me, that's something that I really admired about them. I like, they didn't talk about it. They didn't go around bragging. They didn't say, oh, I helped you out. Even when people moved on, they didn't go on and say, man, I remember that fool came to me needing help. Or never. You would never hear my parents say no shit like that. That's not their style, right? Their style was, look, I'm not helping you because it helps me. I'm helping you because it helps you. And when you're done with it, go ahead. Like go on about your business. You don't need to pay me back. That was another thing that I really admired about them. They never wanted anything back. If they lent you money, they just basically gave it to you. They weren't gonna say, nah, I need this back, unless they really fucking needed it back. Where it's like, dog, I'm gonna give you my rent money and shit like that, right? But that was only on certain rare cases. But for the most part, if they were gonna give you something, my mom always told me, don't ever lend your family and friends money. Just give it to them. If you have it, give it to them. You know, there's no need to fight about it. Why fight about it? Why bring it up later? Just fucking go ahead and give it to them. Don't worry about them paying you back. What would she say? Like, if you lend it to them, don't expect it back. Just don't expect it back. If they want to give it back to you, cool. So that's for me. Those were things that I really try to, like, I guess, mimic of them. I'm far from perfect. I'm far from like who they were, because to me they were just grateful, giving people. They were very giving, and it's crazy to think about it because they both had it pretty rough coming up, you know. And there were times where a lot of people gave up on them. There were times where a lot of the times they were on their own, and they had no one to ask for help. Sometimes maybe they did, because there was a lot of people in my family that love and admire them too. But sometimes maybe it was the shame or embarrassment where they wouldn't want to ask for help. I think that's kind of where I get that too, low key. But they'd be willing to help even though they wouldn't want to ask for help. And like I said, I just trip out on it for real. It's really crazy to think that despite their hardships, despite, you know, the trauma and everything that they went through, they never allowed it to harden them to the point where they lost too much of their humanity. They still were a big believer in people. They still were a huge believer in community. And like I said, even when I got out of YA, my brother had people staying at the house. I think up until recently, up until my pops passed, they had people there because they wanted to help people. That's what they wanted to do. They hardly got anything in return. Hardly ever did anyone, like, that I know of. Well, maybe they did. You know, that's another thing. Maybe they did get something in return. Maybe they just didn't put it out there, though. Like I said, they weren't those kind of people. They weren't going to say, that vato owes me. They weren't going to say, fuck that. They have, like, if you gave them something, a lot of times they'd be like, nah, don't worry about it. I've seen my pops tell people, don't worry about it. Nah, we're cool. I did that on the strength, homie. Like, I did that just because. And, yeah, so, you know, my pops unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. Maybe even longer now. May he rest in peace. And my mom's still around. She's a little older now, so she's chilling. She's not, she doesn't have, you know, she's older now. So she really, all of us are older. She doesn't really have a lot of friends. So she's not out there like that now. A lot of the times, even like I said, even after they got older, it was us, me and my siblings, who would bring people over. I think all of us have done it. All of us have. I don't think I have one sibling that hasn't had somebody stay over at the house. All of us have done it, and they have 5 kids, so all of us have done that shit. So now my mom is by herself, basically, with my brother and my sister, but there's nobody really out there bringing people to the house like before. So she gets the rest from that. And my dad, he passed away, so may he rest in peace. But yeah, that's what I really admired about them. There's a lot of things that I admired about them, but that was the one thing that I really love, I really appreciated, and I try my best to mimic. I want to be that person that gives without asking for, or without asking for anything in return. That's not what I want. If I give you anything, like, just consider it a solid, because that's all it is for me. You know what I mean? So yeah, much love to my parents. I just wanted to put that out there. Hope everyone has a good day. And comment below, what's the one thing about your parents? I want to know, what's the one thing about your parents that you really love and admire? I know there's a lot of things, but what's that one thing where you're like, I wish I was more like them when it came to that? If you guys could leave a comment below, let me know. And with that, just want to say much love to the Nasty Crew. Much love to all my Y babies. And with that, we out. Peace.